So welcome to everyone who is joining. This is Beth Hendler-Grunt. I am the president and founder of Next Great Step, and very excited to host you for our Invite Live webinar. Excited to have people who purchased our recent book. This is for you, as well as really any member of the Next Great Step community. My goal is to provide valuable advice and guidance to help you or your young adult be successful in navigating the path from college to career. And very excited to be with you. So the goal of this evening is really for me to kind of share some background of what's happening, of why I wrote the book a little bit, kind of give you a preview if you haven't bought it yet, what it's all about, and then talk about just some of the observations and trends that we're seeing. But really in the meanwhile, while I'm talking, I really want to make sure that I get to all of your questions. I have a number of people who have sent me questions ahead of time, so I have those as well. But if you have specific questions and you're just joining, please put those in the Q&A. We realized that the chat for some reason was disabled, not really sure why, but everything we can see in the question and answer little bubble on the bottom. So please put all your questions into the Q&A piece, and I will do my very best to answer them as much as I can. If you are just joining, you also will see a poll. I launched a quick poll. If you can go in there and just answer, it's one question. I'd love to know what's on your mind. So far, basically the question is, what is your biggest challenge with the job search for you or for your grad? And we have a number of things. So far, the answer that has the highest, the biggest challenge is getting an interview, with a close second of progressing to the next round of an interview. So again, if you haven't filled out the poll, just fill that out real briefly so I have a sense of what's on your mind and what you feel is the biggest challenge that you think you or your grad is facing right now. It just helps me get some good information about where we are at. So let me kind of just refresh for a moment and let you know also that we are recording. So if for some reason someone joins late or you have to leave a little bit before we finish, everyone who is registered, you will get a copy of the recording. So no worries about that. So a quick background about me. So I launched this business 7 years ago and coming out of a corporate role. And I had the opportunity to work with many CEOs and executives. And they would always say to me, I'd love to hire a recent grad or a young adult into our business, but I'm not going to, because I feel like they need a lot of hand holding and I don't really have the time to do that. And we need someone who can come in and solve our problems. And likewise, I'm also of the age and became of the age where friends would say, I don't get it. My kids went to a great school, they had great grades, and they cannot get an internship or first job. So I really applied the techniques that I had taught to CEOs and executives about how to have a strategy, how to differentiate yourself, how to articulate your value. And we bring those to young adults through our programs, and really, really proud of the work that we've done, and that 90% of our clients are landing the job that they desire. And we're not guaranteeing employment, but we're really giving them the behind the scenes of what it takes and what employers are expecting to land that job. So excited to be able to do that. I'm also the mom of a class of 2021 grad. And I also have another son who's a sophomore in college. So I am living this with you real time. And just because mom's the expert doesn't always mean they want to listen to me either. So I really understand some of the challenges that parents face and as guiding young adults as well. And that was really, we kind of came to a point where we spoke with so many parents, that's why we wanted to write the book. We really wanted to put a resource in the hands of parents, guardians, friends, family, to really be able to guide the young adult in their life with some really simple steps that enable you to help them. So just wanted to share that. The agenda for the evening is I'm going to share a little bit about some of the perspectives of that are in the book. For those of you, if you haven't gotten it yet, it's on Amazon. I encourage you to do so. But just so you understand why it's out there and why I think it would be of value, I'm going to then talk about some of the trends that we're seeing. But really, my goal is to make sure that I answer your questions. This is for you as a resource. So as I'm talking over the next 5 to 7 minutes or so, please put your questions into the chat. Be happy to answer them. I also have some questions that people have sent to me ahead of time, so I can share those as well. Okay, and then also my colleagues, Lauren and Rachel, you might see them post in the chat. There's a number of resources that we have in terms of links to some free resources that we may mention along the way, free resources to have a complimentary consultation. So feel free to grab any of those at any time as you see fit. So when I think about the background for this, the truth is young adults are graduating from college and they're just not prepared for the job market. 2 million students graduate from college every year. 87% of them believe they're ready for work, but only 50% of hiring managers agree. And the jobless rate for new grads has surpassed that of all workers every month since January of 2021. The pandemic absolutely did not help. And that 2/3 of millennials and Gen Zers who've moved back home during the pandemic, they still live there. So there's this big disconnect between employer expectations for hiring and the skill set of our recent grads that they thought they had for the workplace. And parents and families are frustrated. There's been this huge investment in college, and parents themselves haven't looked for a job in 20-something years, and they're not sure of the guidance to give, or maybe your young adult doesn't want to take your advice. So we have this problem, and I'd like to share some perspectives on this from 3 angles: from the angle of a parent, a college student, a new grad, as well as an employer. So for parents, and I'll say this, collectively, sometimes this whole process is not what they promised, right? We went on this college campus tour. They told us that not only would our kid get this incredible education and social experience, but we assume that they're going to come out of school with a job. And that doesn't always happen. We're also seeing that we assume that the school would encourage our kids to go to career services, or that our kids would go. The truth is that only 4 in 10 of college students actually go to career services. And there's probably lots of reasons for that happening, but it doesn't always happen. We thought the university would teach our kids life skills like networking, but it's not taught as part of the curriculum. We think sometimes that, well, I'll just introduce them to a connection. I'll introduce to a family friend or neighbor, but sometimes our kids kind of blow it, or they're not ready for those introductions. So what we thought would happen is not yielding the results. And one thing I hear from parents the most is that they say, I wish I knew. I wish I knew how early the process starts, and if I could give guidance a little bit earlier on how to help. And I'll offer this too, if you're joining and your student or grad has graduated a few years ago, maybe they're 3, 4, 5 years out. I just want to send the message to you that it's not too late. So it doesn't matter that they didn't use the college resources. It doesn't matter what stage that you're at. There's always an opportunity to be able to help them. So here's what our students and grads are thinking. In general, the students that I talk to and grads, they feel lost. They're struggling. They start off confident. They start off feeling like, I can do this. They were told they either had the perfect major, or they went to the right school and studied the right things. They're the generation where everyone wins, everybody gets a trophy, but they decide to move forward. They're like, okay, let me apply online. Let me see how it goes. And they slowly start to realize that it can be a black hole, or they don't hear back, or if they do hear back, they don't progress in the interview. They think maybe more is better. Maybe I should apply to more jobs. Maybe it's a numbers game. Or they think maybe if I just fix my resume, if I just get the right keywords, everything will be fine. There's also the feeling of like, well, what should I even do with my life? I'm not even sure if I want to take on a career that matches the major that I had in college. They might feel pressure from parents or friends of what direction to head in. And they often start to question like everything, do they have the right skills? Would somebody even consider hiring them? And we have a real issue in terms of mental health. 40% of young adults have reported feeling anxiety or depression. And how do we separate that from the normal setbacks of the job search? Many are scared, they're afraid, they just feel stuck and are not sure how to move forward in the process. And then we have employers. Right now, there are 10 million job openings and 8 million job seekers. I'm going to repeat that. There's 10 million job openings and 8 million job seekers. So clearly there's opportunities, but employers are still struggling to find the right talent with the right skills, and they don't want to babysit. They don't want to hold their hand. They want someone who comes in who can really help solve problems for their business. I think they get frustrated, and employers have shared with me, they get frustrated because sometimes a young adult might come in and say, well, I deserve this job, or I want to be promoted within a year. And the candidate just hasn't put the work in yet. The other thing they say is, they don't want to hear a young candidate saying, well, this job would be great for me. They really want the job to be great for them, for the company, for the organization's goals, and help them be successful. They want to see internships. They want to see real world experiences. And they need new grads. They just want our young adults to come in prepared. There's actually a segment from a book. I think if I pull it up, and I may have not highlighted it, I think I had it in a different spot. But there's a quote from one amazing gentleman who was in my book. His name is Adam Schneider, and he is the head partner at a very large consulting firm. And just kind of the sentiment that the kids that come in even to these jobs, it's not about getting an A. It's not about just acing the semester or the next 4 months. It's like, how can you really offer value over a long period of time and ultimately really enhance the firm's performance? And I think, we kind of need to encourage that. So how do we bridge this gap? What's that next step? And that's why I wrote this book. I really wanted to provide a book as well as a methodology and process that we teach to young adults to really provide a simple, structured, step-by-step approach that enables young adults to be successful in landing the job that they deserve. And we do that, and we solve for that by helping them to build a strategy that answers 2 questions. 1, to know what skills they have they can bring to an employer, and 2, who are they going to bring their skills to in a very focused way. So when someone says to them, tell me about yourself, they know exactly what they're going to say, and they're applying to those companies that can leverage their best talents, where the entire brand is professional. So I'll pause for a moment. Just wanted to give that overview, but I'm going to kind of come into the chat and the Q&A rather, and see some of the questions that we have here. All right, so I appreciate people jumping in here. So I'm going to start with a question from Emily. Thanks for asking a question. It says, what advice do you give to a recent grad who can't find or get their dream job? And I love this question, so thank you for asking that. So let's just pause for a moment about this concept of the dream job. I don't know if that's a fair assessment, or I don't know, and I'll speak for as an adult, as a parent, have we sold our kids this image of that there is such a thing as a dream job where you are ecstatic and happy all the time? I think, work can be not always the most exciting. And I think sometimes there's also the feeling of well, it looks like someone else is doing something really exciting. Or, we have this, especially with social media, everybody's lives look so perfect. I think there's definitely an opportunity where you could say, hey, look, this is the kind of job that I really want and I aspire to. One of the things we teach is you need to make sure you learn about that. And how do you learn about that is really by talking to someone who's doing the job. So Emily, the first thing I would say to you is you need to be talking to more people who are doing the job that you think is whatever the dream job is, whatever the job that you aspire to is. Let's make sure that you are reaching out to people who actually are doing it right now, so you can get a real clear sense of what that looks like, what it takes to get into that role, and whether your skills align. Because sometimes things seem very glamorous. People say, I really want to be in, sports marketing, or I want to work with athletes. I want to be, work with an agent for Hollywood. But sometimes it could be a grind. Work can still be very difficult, or it can be as exciting as you're hoping it will. So that's the first thing, is you really need to talk to people who are doing the job that you think you want. And then from there, you need to think about, what are your own skills? Do you have the skills that are needed for that type of opportunity? And if you don't have them, what do you need to do in the interim? What's that interim step to potentially get you there? So if you needed to learn how to code, or you need a certification, or maybe that wasn't your major, there's so many micro courses now, or mini courses that enable additional enhanced learning to get there. So I think sometimes we need to really think about sometimes matching what the skills are that you have versus this aspiration of like, I just really want this kind of job. But let's make sure that it fits. Let's make sure it aligns, because there's nothing more challenging than if you think you want this job and you get there and you realize, wow, this is either much harder than I thought, or I don't even really have the right skill set for this. So I hope that answers your question. You can comment back into the Q&A, but thanks for asking that, because I know that comes up a lot. And part of it is persistence. Part of it is you have to have grit. You have to continue to follow up. It can't be one call or two calls or one email or one text. It has to be persistent, like over and over and over again, just to get somebody's attention. So those are the kinds of things that we teach, we talk about. So I hope that was helpful in answering that question. Okay. All right, another question from a recent grad. So I'm a recent grad, and a brief overview of the situation is that this person may not want a career in the field of study, which was health and exercise science. This person's open to options, but not really sure where to start. So the question is, what advice do I give someone in that situation? Another great question, and I think I'm going to have a similar answer, but maybe kind of in reverse. We see this a lot. You know, there's a lot of pressure to have someone who's 17 or 18 years old make a decision on a major. And just because that's your major, that doesn't mean that that's what you have to be for the rest of your life. And I know sometimes it feels that way, and it's hard because you don't want to waste the investment of going to college. You want to maximize it. Sometimes we just realize we tried. You know, that's part of the process of going to college. You take some risks, you learn. You're going to like certain things. You're going to like some classes. You're going to not like other classes. We see this a lot where you studied one thing, you come out and you realize, I didn't really love it. I don't think I want to move in that direction. And that's okay, even though I know that's like a big pill to swallow. And I'll say for the parents listening or anybody who's helped make the investment, of course, that's difficult to hear. But in the end, there's options. You have a good college education, and that will still serve you. The first thing you need to do is have this self-reflection, which we start with all of our students, is this concept of skills. What are your core skills? And when I say core, meaning what are the top three? Those are the skills that you are the most competent, the most skilled at, and what do you enjoy doing? And there has to be kind of this alignment. So maybe you've decided, I don't want to be in exercise science. Maybe you're a great writer. Maybe you used to either write a blog, or you wrote for yourself, or you did something for the paper. Maybe you're great at sales, you know, or customer service. Maybe you were part of a club in college where you would recruit members to join. You want to start thinking about all the things that really kind of made you feel that you were excited to do it. You wanted to do more of it. And I think that's the starting point, is who are you? What are you about? Forget what's on the job boards for a minute. I think it's very distracting. It's take a look at what skills you have. And if you say you have a skill, you need to have a story behind it. So you can't just walk into someone and say, well, I'm a great writer. Well, how do you know that? Give me an example. So we talk about these skill stories and something that just validates it. So if somebody never looked at your resume, they never looked at any past experience, you can explain to them in a minute or two of why you might have that skill. And I think once you get clear on the skills and the stories that back them up, then you can think about, well, what are the types of companies and industries that need those skills? And one of my favorite ways to look at, go to Google, go to LinkedIn, go to look at fellow alumni, look at people who are doing things or have those kinds of skill sets that are of interest. And sometimes it's going to take a little while. You have to do some research. You have to read a trade journal, newspapers. You have to continue to educate yourself about what's out there. And I strongly recommend networking conversations where you reach out to someone. Again, I like LinkedIn, especially I like alumni on LinkedIn because they tend to be the most friendly. And you want to reach out to say, I'm really impressed with the path that you took, or like you, I went to the same school. I'd love to learn more about what you're doing. Can you spend 15 minutes with me to share that? And I think you'll uncover a lot of really good information about, one, whether you even like position and what they have to say, and two, whether your skills align to that. And I think that really serves as the foundation where you can start then picking, companies. I always say I have this like 10 and 10 rule. Pick 10 companies 10 people who are doing something at one of those companies or in the job that you want as a start. Build an Excel spreadsheet and start targeting them and reaching out to network. And I think that's the best way to get started. Don't jump to a job board. It's just like, that's like just, throwing spaghetti at the wall. You really want to kind of take a moment to assess where you're at and see how that feels. So I know there's obviously a pretty long process, a little bit longer process, but I hope that helps answer the question on if you had a major and it didn't necessarily feel aligned to your direction. Okay. I think I kind of answered that same thing. I had someone ask the question of interested in prospects for careers for a student with a BS in psychology who does not want to work in counseling or pursue a master's degree. I mean, same thing. I see this a lot, especially with, where people say, I was an English major, but I don't necessarily want to be a writer. I mean, psychology enables you to go in a lot of directions. You can go into law, you can go into sales, you can go into business, you can go into HR. I think the same thing. There needs to be this reflection on what are the skills that you have and where do you want to bring them to in terms of your interests. And you really have to talk to people to kind of get that assessment. All right, let's see what we have. Okay. What's your advice for a recent grad who gets a first interview but doesn't progress to the next step or is ghosted by a company? Fortunately, there's a lot of, I'll say, bad behavior in hiring and recruiting. And unfortunately, this happens a lot. So my first question would be, I'm curious about how you got it. Did you just apply online? Did you capture the person's information? So I have a couple of ideas about when somebody does not reply. And it's really about being persistent. So the first thing is, for every interview, you need to make sure, sometimes it's an HR person who coordinates it, but they're not the person who does the interview. So one of the first tips is always to make sure you get the name and email of the person who is actually interviewing you before you get off that call, before you get out of that meeting or video call. Please try to make sure you capture who you spoke to. And if you're not sure, go back to HR and get that person's name and their email. After an initial interview, I am a big proponent of that. A thank you note needs to be written within 24 hours. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be, thank you so much for the time you spent with me today. I really enjoyed learning this about the organization. Pick something. And based on my skills of X and Y, I think I'd be able to add value to your business. I look forward to speaking with you. I will follow up with you next week. So right from the get-go, set the expectation that you are going to be in touch with them, that you are going to follow up. Whether they read the whole thing or not, it's like setting and saying, I am not going away so fast. I am going to contact you. I'm not just going to wait for you to call me when you're ready. And I have this phrase that I like to use when we write follow-up letters. So maybe you wait 1 week. So my recommendation is you had the interview, you write the thank you note 24 hours later, if you don't hear within 7 days, you write another note. So to me, it's you follow up every 7 days until you get an answer of confirmation, whether you got it or not. And the second note will say, as per my previous thank you note, I just wanted to follow up. I'm very excited about the opportunity and I'd love to speak with you soon, or here's my availability. Another interesting thing to do to capture people's attention is to say something that happened in the news, or maybe an announcement happened with the company. So when your next follow-up, saying, I saw this in the paper about your organization and I'm excited about that prospect, or supporting this initiative, or I'd love your opinion on what you think about it. Like, you want to engage them, and you're also showing that you're not asleep at the wheel. You're paying attention to what's happening at this company. And that is some of the things that start to differentiate you along with others, of just that you've read the news, that you're showing of something of interest. Maybe you're sending them an article that you think they might find valuable. They don't respond, another 7 days. By the way, I'm also a fan of picking up the phone. If you have a phone number, pick up the phone and call and say, I'm just following up for the interview that I had last week. I'd like to just touch base. I feel like I'd be a good fit. Can you please give me some feedback or where you are in the hiring process? So email and call them. I'm all about, you're not bothering them. I know a lot of young adults will say, well, I feel like I'm bothering them and I don't want them to get angry with me. You gave them your time. I think they deserve just to give you an answer one way or another. Even if the answer is no, you deserve to know that so you can move on. So we have a thank you note. We have a note 7 days after. So let's say it's 14 days after. One of my favorite phrases is the phrase, please pardon my persistence. So you write, dear so-and-so, please pardon my persistence. I am following up to the interview that we had on this date. I am excited about the opportunity. I wanted to share with you my skills that I think can add value. And I'm going to contact you this afternoon or tomorrow to touch base. So it's like you're letting them know that you're going to be making a phone call or reaching out. I tend to have a lot of success with that phrase. A lot of my clients do as well. It's not because people want to ghost you. People are busy. They have a full-time job. Sometimes their hiring is like another thing that just got added to their plate and they just haven't dealt with it. People do also get uncomfortable about giving rejection. So instead of just flat out telling you, I'm sorry, you're not the right fit, they just avoid. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but if you are persistent, I really would give it at least, a 30 days worth of follow-ups. And if after 30 days, 3 to 4 letters that you don't hear, then you need to move on. You need to move on because it's not a good use of your time to continue on it. But to me too, you could find them on LinkedIn. You can send them a LinkedIn note. You can message them on Instagram. I mean, not to stalk them, but I think until you get an answer, I've used so many different tactics to get people's attention. And sometimes people just never saw it or it's in the stack of 1,000 emails that they have. So don't be afraid to be creative in trying to get their attention. So I hope that helps, Tracy. Okay. Great question from a college senior. So hi, I'm a senior in college. I'm curious of the best way to approach looking for a job and how early I should start. So earlier than you think. So if you're a senior, I mean, right now it's October. I don't know when the career fair is or if it passed, but if it's not too late on your campus, absolutely go to the career fair. I'm a big fan. Even though we provide coaching, I want to work with career services. We're not instead of, it's like in conjunction with. So the first thing is absolutely go to the career fair. Go to our website. There is and maybe Rachel can post it. We have a tip sheet on how to ace the career fair, how to ace the virtual career fair, and encourage you to download that so you know how to be prepared for that. If you missed it, let's just say it passed. The first thing I would do is go back to career services and ask them for the list of the companies that attended. They have it. It's probably on the school website, by the way. So even if you missed it, let's say it was in early September, you can go back and see who was there. And if there was somebody who was there, normally they put the name of the recruiter, or you can get the name of the recruiter for that company that comes to your school. So ask career services, who is the person for, EY or PwC or any name company that you want to talk with, because if they're assigned to your university, they're going to want to talk to students like you from your school. So you could say, I'm sorry, I had a conflict that day. Don't over explain, but I'm really excited about your organization. I'd love to talk to you further about, this opportunity that I saw that you were recruiting for at our school. If you feel that if you try that doesn't work, or let's say you missed the boat on the contacts coming to school, the best way to connect is through fellow alumni. So if you are not on LinkedIn, you need to be on LinkedIn. Also, we have another tip. I don't know whether Rachel can link it, or go to our website. We have a free tip sheet on how to have a great LinkedIn profile. We also offer a free video on how to ace the profile for LinkedIn. Gets a little bit more detailed, but you should be on there. And you want to reach out. So the best way to do that is you want to start with fellow alumni. And you want to talk to people who are in a role that looks appealing to you. Alumni tend to be the most sympathetic and willing to speak to fellow students and grads because they were in the same exact spot. And what's nice about it on LinkedIn, if you just go to your own profile and you click the icon for the university. So for example, like my son, he went to Penn State. If you clicked on the Penn State logo, or even if you just type in Penn State University, it brings you to the university LinkedIn page. Almost every university has its own LinkedIn page. And there's a couple of tabs. And the tab that you want to click on is the one that's called Alumni. And on there is this amazing filter where you can search for alumni based on the year they graduated, what they studied, what their skills are, what companies they work for, what cities they work in. And that is a great way to start finding people and to make sure that we're doing that. Hold on, and I'm just getting a note here. I just want to make sure okay, click off the question. So I will make sure that we, sorry, there's a question about the Q&A. I will see that I answered it live. I got it. I'm sorry. So that tool is phenomenal. And I guess my overall feeling is you want to do it sooner than later. You really want to make sure that you are starting this process now because it takes time. And I think, the more you start working on it now, the more time and more relaxed you'll feel as you head towards graduation. So I hope that helps. All right, hold on. I'm just going to click that I answered some of these questions so it doesn't keep popping up. Okay. All right, perfect. All right, so there's another job here, a question about how to apply for a local dog daycare job when there's nowhere to apply online. They don't have a job posted. Daughter's looking to do for a fill-in job. So to me, this just takes a little bit of courage where if you want to work for a company and there's no job posted online, by the way, majority of jobs do not get posted online. So there's kind of this, what we call like the hidden job market, where companies need to hire people, but they don't always post it because the first thing they do is they start and they ask somebody who they know, because 80% of jobs are found by referral. They're not found online. So they don't always post it online. But if there is a company or a local place where you want to work, the best thing to do is to go to their website. I'm sure there's some email, info at or a person's name, and send them a note expressing interest, why you want to talk to them, why you potentially might want to work there. Pick up the phone. I know it's not comfortable for our young adults. They get overwhelmed about talking on the phone, but just say, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm a student at this school. I really am interested in your company. I'd love to talk to you about, a little bit more about what you do and if you have any openings, or even sometimes I don't even know if that's the right first conversation, but you can assess if there's openings, or saying, if not, I'd love to be able to come in. Could I come in and shadow? Could I talk to you about what you do? I mean, part of this process is about building relationships, because we have to remember, no matter how much technology is out there and all these job boards and Indeed and Glassdoor, is that people hire people, not an AI, not a tracking system, not a resume keyword finder. Is that people ultimately hire people, and they tend to hire people that they know and that they've met and that they like. And you want to be known as much as possible. So usually people are happy when a young adult reaches out. I know it takes a lot of courage sometimes, and getting over the fear of, what if they don't say yes? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They say, I'm sorry, we don't have anything available right now. But you should practice reaching out and practice sending a note. And you need to be persistent, the same thing, and not get discouraged when you don't hear back after one or two communications. It's just part of the process. Sometimes, I hate to say it, for some employers, it's a little bit of a game. They want to see how persistent and determined this person is and how much they're willing to keep sending those messages. So I hope that helps answer the question. Okay, let me, I just want to click through some of these so we can get to it. All right. Okay, we got that one. Talked about being ghosted, talked about the part-time job, when to start. Okay, got that. Okay, is the job search, okay, here's a question. Is the job search any different for students in the sciences, like molecular biology or genetics, who want to do research only? It's interesting. We And then continuation, from the above, plans to pursue a PhD, wants or needs to compare corporate lab versus academic lab, already familiar with academic lab. So specific to research, we've had a lot of students and clients who go into research and the sciences. I am not going to tell you that I am the absolute expert on which kind of labs. If you feel that you've already done an academic lab and now you feel like you need a research lab based on potentially getting a PhD, then definitely talk with someone who has a PhD in that area and make sure that you're following the right progression. But in terms of the process of how you get it, I don't care if it's getting a job in a lab, a job doing digital marketing. I don't care if it's an internship versus a job a few years out. To me, the process is the same. You need to be really methodical and structured in how you go about of the skills that you have, targeting the people who have the opportunities that you want the job at, making sure you're sending, a letter, you're connecting on LinkedIn, that you have a clear elevator pitch, you have a good LinkedIn profile, a good resume, cover letter, like all of those pieces, prepared for a mock interview, all of those pieces. To me, it doesn't matter the role or the job. An employer wants to see somebody who is prepared, they have done their research, they've done their homework, they have clarity on the value that they could bring to that person or that organization. And I think, and if you want to find out about the whole process, you can get it in the book, but it really doesn't matter. And again, we've worked with people across everything, music, the arts, engineering, coding, it doesn't matter. We're finding that people are able to yield results no matter what the interest is. So, but again, the people that know the best are the people who are in that field. Yes, me and my team, we have extensive experience working with many, many fields, but that was a very specific question about the process to a PhD and the type of whether it's academic versus research driven. So you need to talk with another PhD just to be sure of that, because I'm going to admit that I'm not the absolute expert on that. So I hope that helps. Okay. Okay, we have a recent college grad. How do you suggest networking with alumni or expanding your network when the industry you are interested in has a much smaller number of alumni compared to other fields? Great question. So we get this. So we often say, go to LinkedIn, go to your university page. But if you went to a small school, some schools have like 300,000 alumni, some have like 10,000 alumni. So if you just happen to go to a small school that has a very small number of graduates who are in the area that you want to go to, you do not need to be limited by your own university. You can go to any school. So a couple things. There's a couple of like ways around LinkedIn to forge some kind of commonality. You could go to pick a school that you think might have a larger amount. So let's say you pick a different school that has a larger amount of alumni in the field that you want, but you didn't go there. That's okay. Your letter can say, I am a college student and I noticed that you're doing this work and I'd love to learn more, even though I go to a different school. That's okay. Or you can find something specific in there. All you have to do is be curious and pay attention to their profile. I noticed that you had this experience and that's something that I'd like to learn more about. Could you share spend a few minutes with me talking about it? So don't feel limited. It's just a starting point. Don't feel limited that it only has to be the university that you went to of the people that you're allowed to network with on LinkedIn. That's not the point. You can search, by area, say, I want to talk to people who are in PR. I want to see who is in engineering. The other great way to forge connections on LinkedIn is through groups. There is a group for everything. And our little trick about groups is, let's just say you find somebody who's doing a job that you really want, but you don't know them. You go to the bottom of their profile and it'll tell you all the groups they belong to. Well, if the group is in a common area that you want to go into, so let's just say you want to get into HR, there's an HR professionals group. You go join the group. Usually there's very little requirements to join. They accept you. And then you go back to that person and say, like you, I'm in the HR professionals group. I'd love to talk to you more about your role. So now all of a sudden you have something in common. You didn't go to the same school. You may have never met. You don't have any in common connections, but you're just in the same group. And that's another nice way, a little sneaky way to say, we have this in common. Would you consider talking with me? So don't let the small number of alumni limit you as well. And the other thing to do is, or you can do it in reverse. You can go to the company. There's every major corporation has a page, and you can see if there's certain people who are doing the job at a specific company. And again, reach out. I'm a young adult. I'm a recent grad. I'm a student. I'd love to understand more about this role. So you don't want to say, hi, I really need a job, or hi, I really need an internship. Like that's a little cringy because they don't know you. You want to be curious. You want to forge a relationship. And then when you have this conversation, we teach a technique about how to have a great conversation with our concept that we call the 3 A's, that then you can potentially ask, is there someone you can introduce me to? Is there a way that you might need someone who has my skills, things like that. So I hope that answered the question about, what to do when you have a smaller network. So thank you for asking that question. All right, let me scroll through here. I think we might have gotten most of them. Okay, I've been working hard to get in touch, having a hard time getting a job interview or finding the right job for me. Any suggestions that you'd give? And I think this is another good question. I appreciate you asking that. Sometimes there's this feeling that you go on a job board, especially a student, grad, you go onto the job boards and you're just like, I don't see anything that I like here. Nothing looks good, or I don't think I have the right number of years of experience, or they're saying entry level, but they want 3 to 5 years. Like nothing gets me excited, or I don't even think it's worth me applying. So there's kind of two parts. Like one, I don't feel like this is calling to me. And the other one is I don't feel like I'm qualified. So I think that's when you need to stop doing that. And you have to go back to, what are your skills? What do you think you want to do? And the other thing that I would say, if you found a job that you think you fit the criteria for like 60 to 70%, you don't maybe necessarily have the 3 years, or maybe you don't, that's okay. Employers write job ads that are sometimes unrealistic. They want the world. I mean, who wouldn't, right? I want someone with all this experience, who's not going to cost me a lot of money, who's da-da-da-da. It's just, they throw a lot of things in there. So my feeling is, in general, if you meet like 60 to 70% of the criteria, you should apply. The other thing that I tell students and grads is that you probably have more experience than you think. If you piece together part-time job, volunteer experience at school, internships, all of that, that equals to about 2 years. So don't let the 2-year requirement stop you from potentially applying. Now, am I a fan of just randomly applying? As you could probably hear, no. But if you do want to do that and you feel like there's a deadline or you want to apply, but here's what else you need to do. You need to go find someone, or ideally the HR manager, and see what the spot, what their role is. And if you can send them a note and say, I noticed I applied for this job online and I'm really excited about it. I just wanted to make you aware that I've submitted my resume. I look forward to speaking with you soon. Now, you may not even grab the right HR person, but if you go to LinkedIn or even Google and you search the company and you search head of HR, they'll get it to the right person. But don't do it in isolation. If you just apply online, the chances of it getting picked up are very low. Because, as I said before, people hire people that they know or have met, and you need to forge that. Or you also need to not only connect to HR, maybe you need to proactively see, is there some kind of alumni who went to the same school who's at that company? So just all of these kind of little tricks, but every touch point is what makes you memorable and what makes you stand out over other candidates. And that's how, kind of people start to find you. I hope that helped. So I'll spend just a minute. I think I answered that question. So I'll spend another minute just chatting about a few things. And if you have other questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A. But these have been amazing, amazing questions. So I'm so glad. So look, I've been very honored. Our book has done really well. We are an Amazon #1 bestseller in 3 categories. and we're a top 10 bestseller in I think 6 or 7 categories. So it's been really, really well received. And I think it's because we're meeting a need and a gap in the market. So by the way, if you're a student, you can buy it too. It actually gives you all the steps that you need as well. And as a parent, it just helps you to give the right guidance. If you have bought the book and you felt it was of value, I would be so, so grateful for an Amazon review. That really just enables more people to hear about it and learn about it. But the one thing I want to offer to everybody who's on this call tonight is that if you have questions or we have not spoken, I welcome the opportunity to have a complimentary consultation with a parent, with a student. We'll do them together. And I'll see if we can drop the link. If you just go to our website, thenextgreatstep.com, and there's a big blue button on the right, it says, let's talk. I think that's the best way for us to assess how we can best support you, your college student, your grad, and making sure that they're getting the support they need. So I really, really am grateful for that. I'm going to jump back to the poll. And we've had actually everybody's jumped into there. So the poll question was, what is your biggest challenge with the job search for you or your grad? And the one that had the highest number, the biggest challenge was getting an interview. And I hear that all the time. I think that really validates. I think the next highest one was, what's my career path and where should I go from here? So I think, let's see what happens when I share results. Maybe you guys can see it. So it gives you a sense of what people are thinking. And, yeah, I understand. And it's funny, I just literally, before I jumped on, Wall Street Journal article just came out that they predict that class of 2023 hiring will be really strong, even stronger than for 22, which is great news, but it's competitive. And there's the need to really still differentiate yourself and stand out. And you got to start early and make those connections, go to career services, go to the career fair, and just be persistent. Sometimes I feel there's a feeling like everyone takes it personally when someone doesn't respond. Don't take it personally. It's just business. It's not because they don't want to talk to you. It's they really want to eventually get to you, but they're busy, and you just have to keep at it. And I'm telling you, the more that you do that, the more that you'll have results. So let me just jump down here. So again, we're on all social media channels. So I also have YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, we're everywhere. And I'm actually going to be on CBS News in Pittsburgh on Monday morning on October 31st. So if you're in that area, it's also going to be online. So it's kdka.com. I'm sure if you're on my list, you will see information about that. So really excited. I'll be talking about the book on the CBS Pittsburgh News on Monday. All right. So I don't see any last questions, but you know where to reach us. If there's anything else that we can do to support you, feel free. You can reach out. I'll give you my email directly, which is Beth, BETH @nextgreatstep.